As we wrap up every week, courtesy of our friends at the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park, the most engaged real talkers in the land submit their hottest takes by way of emails to talk@ryanjesperson.com and comments on our YouTube episodes as well. This is the Flamethrower, presented by the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. We got this one from Nesen, who writes in and says, Ryan, Pierre Poilievre is still borrowing political lines from the golden-haired man south of the border who did that to detract people from the real issues or his lack of good policy. As voters, issues are what should be most important, not name-calling, not crazy slogans, and not snide comments. The more that Poilievre reminds us of the President of the United States, the more we will doubt his leadership ability. I want him to talk real policy. I want him to talk real solutions. Otherwise, Trump will wrap Pierre around his finger and run circles around him. That from Nesen. What about this one from AJ, who says, Jespo, what the hell are you talking? How do you figure that issuing carbon tax rebates just ahead of the election are a gray area? They collected the tax for Q1, and we are owed the rebate. Election or not, we are owed it. What difference does it really make if it's paid out during the election run or if they hold off until May? The people still know, or at least they should, that it's coming one last time this spring and then no more. AJ says this is a non-issue. AJ, agree to disagree. What about this one from Ms. B? This is a YouTube comment. She says, honestly, let's use critical thinking for a hypothetical here. She's talking about Wayne Gretzky putting his neck out there. We were talking about that the morning after Alex Ovechkin scored .895. You had kind of a Putin-Trump thing going on there. Ms. B says, if Canada were to be annexed, Wayne Gretzky wouldn't suffer or struggle in any way. He would lose nothing. On the side of Canadians, we could lose our sovereignty. Essentially, we would lose everything, and that's a fact. What a privilege it must be to not have to take a threat seriously because the outcome will not in any way disrupt your life. And I truly don't say that with bitterness. It's just a plain, harsh reality. And good for Wayne Gretzky. But the rest of us who could lose our sovereignty, plain hard facts, we don't have that privilege. This is not a hysterical political thing. It's a real life sovereignty thing. And we've always supported Gretzky. And now when we need his support, he's showing his support for the person that's trying to take our sovereignty. It is what it is, and we should respond accordingly. So stop making excuses for Wayne. He's a grown man, not a child who needs his hand held on this. Maybe he doesn't owe us an explanation, but he needs to shoulder the realistic and justified consequences for his actions. Ms. B says, I never support vandalism either, but why is it minimized to this political issue? It goes far beyond at that point. She's talking about whoever it is that smeared shit all over the Gretzky statue in Edmonton. How about this one from Cam, who wrote in on YouTube after Max Fawcett joined us, talking about Preston Manning and going back to the well of conservative discontent with Ottawa and all this talk about separation. Cam, on the flip side, says maybe it's the decades-long liberal propaganda that's been holding back Alberta's potential by telling us that everything we do is bad, Max, like pipelines, like oil sands, and everything else. Cam says, I'm a federalist, but I for sure see the anger and frustration that many people have. How about this one from Brandon, who wrote in when we were talking about separation, Alberta sovereignty, and how folks feel about it. We were talking about some polling numbers, right? And it shows that about 28% of Albertans are keen on leaving Canada. About 30% of Albertans want to leave if the Liberals are elected again. Brandon says, Jespo, your conservative numbers, those aren't small odds. He says, let's say it's 25%. That's 1 in 4 Albertans, and that number could probably go up. The feds have spent the last 10 years attacking Alberta's single largest industry that employs most people in this province. That's not true, by the way. He says, do you really think that we can afford a 4th Liberal term? What benefit would we get from being in Confederation? Brandon says, if Alberta were independent, we would have more land than 79% of all nations. We would have more farmland than 91% of all nations. We would be one of the most prosperous and free nations on earth. We would have a larger GDP than 80% of all nations. We would have a population larger than 33% of all nations. We would have a higher GDP per capita than 97% of all nations. And we would be the masters of our destiny. Well, guess what, Brandon? We wanted to fact check your claims, and so we ran them through the Real Talk fact checker. And Johnny, would you please put up the numbers? It turns out that the numbers that Brandon has presented are for the most part very true. Alberta would have more land than 79% of all other nations. We would have more farmland. That's mostly true. We would have one of the most prosperous and free nations on earth. Likely true. We would have a larger GDP than 80% of all nations. Mostly true. A population larger than a third. True. A higher GDP per capita than 97%. True. And masters of our destiny, our Real Talk fact checkers have let us know that's a matter of opinion. But Brandon, your opinion is duly noted. And that was a great email. Still doesn't change my mind. My Canada includes Alberta, but you can let us know what you think anytime to talk@ryanjesperson.com. And the next time you're visiting a DQ in Palisades, Namao, Newcastle, Westmount, or on Baseline Road to pick up one of those flamethrowers, signature stack burgers, you make sure you let them know that Real Talk sent ya. Coming up on Monday, all the way through till Thursday of next week, we've got you covered with in-depth election analysis as we inch our way toward the 28th of April. That Monday is Election Day here in Canada. Make sure you tell your friends about what we're doing here on the show. Share it, like it, review it. We thank you for that. And Real Talk patrons, I hope to see you on the 17th at our Real Talk debate night viewing party. Check your inbox for details. Have a great weekend, everybody.